Yeah. Take you back. So what? Summer. That's the soda that's
it's working.
I was going to get the picture the other end.
Do you need a fork? Beautiful. Beautiful. This is like a special flavor, man.
Yeah, Yoni Frager. Yoni Frager is my seltzer. He's my seltzer supplier. No. This is special order. Special order.
It's like fell off the back of a truck.
I'm gonna start with the key lime pie.
I love key lime pie. It's the best dessert. That's Boston cream.
I have a LaCroix of key lime.
Yeah.
Not key lime
like
pie.
this one better.
All right. All right, Tzav. Good evening, good Erev Shabbos, and a Heilige Zayin Adar. Heilige Zayin Adar. Incredible Yahrzeit to Moshe Rabbeinu. What a night, Baruch Hashem, to be able to get together. What a night to be able to bring in Shabbos Kodesh together. Shemen Nishkach Rav Eli, who every time he walks in, he just lifts everything up. Just incredible. And a mazel tov to Chad. Did Chad leave? No. Chad's going to be here like until Tuesday. He's not going anywhere. Yeah. Did you leave the window down? There's one of these. It's cold, yeah. Mazel tov, Chad, Emir Hashem, should be zoch, your Nevi should be zoch, Emir Hashem, to machnes your son. The Risol Sha'avram Avinu Bizmano, and to see him grow to Torah, to Chuppah, and to Maisim Tovim Ad Meh Ve'esrim Shanim. Amen. Steve, who are our sponsors for tonight?
Ezra Gordon, in honor of the yahrzeit of his grandfather, Charles Rosen, Common Ben Mayer, and John Kaplan, in honor of the yahrzeit of his father, which is actually this evening. Yol Ben Yitzhak, both Neshama should have one.
Amen. L'chaim, Charbon Neshama should have an aliyah. So we always, again, it's a schus to learn in Le'ilei Nishmas Papa Rod. John's father was a really special man who mamish, like, you understand? He would have loved this year. He would have loved this year. No, not one word. But he still would have had a great time. He would have had a great time, because the truth is, what Yonasson's father enjoyed more than anything really, you saw it, is like sitting with his family and sitting with community, and he just enjoyed sitting there with his bottle of Woodford Reserve. That's how we forged our relationship over Woodford Reserve, and he would just be the happiest guy in the world, just like literally sitting at the table on Shabbos, watching his beautiful mishpacha, feeling the love from this kihila towards him. Mir Hashem is neshama shav and aliyah should be a melis yosher for his mishpacha, and Halav should just be zocher to tchias amesim bekarov.
Amen. I also want to thank John for stepping in tonight and putting together all the food.
Shkayach Yonason, thank you. Oh, this wasn't Howie. This was Yonason. Thank you, Yonason. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It was all right.
I mean, you were Shami with that.
Last week.
You made too much last week, Jonathan? You made too much last week? No, you made too much
give the guy a break. Give the guy a break.
He's cleaning out the freezer.
I was looking for the sheet cake. Where is that? Is that
sitting next to the frozen sausage tuna?
That's all manna food right there.
All right, Kevin, of course.
Oven loves it.
Yeah, I'm going to get him a bigger plate for that. Yeah,
He crushes that.
Yeah. I've never seen somebody eat a tuna sandwich at Shalashudis with such a slavos, like it was like Leib Yosef. That's
Chariots of
He comes just for the tuna.
And he stays for the Zmiris.
No, he wants to leave. He eats a sandwich.
I do say also, as every week, we dedicate our learning in the zechus of our precious soldiers who are Moser Nefesh for Am Yisrael, for Eretz Yisrael, each and every day. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give them incredible siyata d'shmaya. They should be successful in all of their missions, and they should, Mir Hashem, come back to their families b'shalom and b'karov. And of course, we daven for the return of all of our hostages. It was so amazing, such a feeling of aliyah to be able to see the dramatic rescue of two of our hostages this week. I just tell you, the most incredible part. I don't know if you saw. There was in Times of Israel. There was an interview with the commander of Yamam, this special forces, police force that rescued the hostages, and he was talking about, it was incredible. He was talking about how, he was talking about the operation, how they were able to get in, how they got out, and he said, just understand how it works. When we got the hostages, he said, our job was to shield them with our bodies. Our job was to get them to the armored personnel carrier, and you think about it, like the height of Avas Yisrael, that literally, again, to feel so connected and so committed to another Jew, that literally you're willing to shield their body with yours. That was the job. You protect the hostages at all costs. And it was just overwhelming. You read these kind of things, and on one hand it's heartbreaking, on one hand it's overwhelming, but on the other hand, it's so inspiring because you realize that we are truly part of the greatest nation on the face of this earth. That it's Mika Amcha Yisrael, with the love we have for one another, the commitment we have to one another. I want to say, with that level of love, that level of commitment, that level of dveikus, connection to one another, connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no doubt we will be victorious. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow us to see the return of all of our hostages, b'shalom and b'karov. I will say, with that, let us begin. We're picking up tonight on page Shin Chaf Ches. Shin Chaf Ches. So remember again, so the Piaget's, I will say, just kind of our overarching piece in all of this.
All the way towards the back.
Yeah, all the way in the back. Sorry, two Sfarim in one over here.
Is that so we finish with?
Yeah, this is like we're at the end. It makes me feel good that we're at the end. Yeah, we started at the end, but so I will say, see, if you remember again, just reorient ourselves a little bit. Not that we get so far that we have to reorient ourselves, but just reorient ourselves a little bit. So remember again, the Piaget's that we're talking about over here, that when a person commits an Aveira, that Aveira imprints itself, right? It leaves its residue on multiple layers of the self. So we're used to the concept that the Aveira imprints itself on the moach, on the mind, and on the lave and on the heart. What the Piaget's introduces us to the idea is that Aveira, even Chet, even leaves its imprint on the neshama, on the soul. And the Piaget's says sometimes in the process of tshuva, we take care of expunging Chet from the heart and from the mind, but we forget to expunge sin, the residue of sin, ultimately again from the soul. And remember again, what does the Piaget's know? Remember his comparison? So leaving the residue of the sin in the soul and getting rid of it everywhere else, but leaving it in the soul. He remember the mashal he gave was like the individual who has a very bad stomach ulcer. And as a result, he's always vomiting. So a person goes to the doctor, and if it's not a good doctor, what is the doctor going to treat? He's going to treat the vomiting. But he doesn't treat the ulcer. So if you treat the vomiting, it's fine. You could quiet the symptoms for some amount of time. But if you haven't treated the underlying illness, it's only a matter of time until it flares up again. So the Rebbe says that when I get Chet out of my mind, and I get Chet out of my soul, out of my heart, that's definitely part of the process. I'm treating some of the symptoms. But the real impact of sin is the fact that it entrenches itself. It entrenches itself ultimately again in my neshama. And until I find a way to get it out of there, to mamish get it out of there, even if I treat the symptoms, the underlying illness is still present. So I will say our whole avodah is to try to figure out, how do I get into my soul? How do I get into my soul to go ahead and uproot the Chet that is within me? And I will say, remember again, if I could do that, and this is incredible, I know this probably is the hardest piece to wrap our head around. But the Piaget's says, if you could uproot the sin from your soul, then you can mamish go ahead and potentially get rid of the desire to sin altogether. That's so often the reason. I was remember again, we were talking about this last week, how like sometimes in the middle of nowhere, like I'm minding my own business, right? I'm davening Shmona Esrei, I'm not even checking my email during Shmona Esrei. That's how good it is. Right? That's how much kavanah I'm having, right? Right? So I'll say, so I haven't posted anything during Shmona Esrei, and right, and then suddenly, like I have like the most inappropriate thought. What's the appropriate thought? It's not like I saw something. It's not like somebody passed in front. Like, so what is that? Where did that come from? I will say, I would venture to say I experienced that, and I venture to say we all experienced that. And you wonder, like, what is that? Where did that come from? Piaget, I'll tell you what it is. It's because you haven't addressed the core illness. Because in my neshama, there's still residue. There's still residual effect of all the chatam that I've done. And I've never really gotten in there and cleaned out my neshama. So if I don't clean out my neshama, then at the end of the day, every once in a while, you'll excuse the expression, like a little bit of that spiritual or anti-spiritual vomit comes up. It's regurgitated up again. I didn't even do anything, but because I haven't undergone that deep spiritual, soulful cleanse, the sinful residue is there, and again, every once in a while it pops up. So how do we get it out? So over the last couple of weeks, the Piaget has been pointing out different ways to get it out, right? Own it, speak to someone, speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we're picking up what we'll say in paragraph A. So we'll say this is incredible. This is a really profound piece. The Piaget says, Al yakel be'einecha chet asher chatasa rak neged atzmecha. So we'll say this is amazing. Piaget says, a person shouldn't take lightly a sin that they only committed against themselves. In other words, I'll give you an example. I'll say a person looks at something inappropriate. practicing Shmiras Hayinayim is incredibly difficult, especially in the world that we live in. So I look at something inappropriate. So I will say, remember, generally when we sin, what happens right after you sin? Right after. Remorse. How long does it last for?
A few minutes.
Right. Oh, you're good. A few minutes. Wow. Maybe an hour. No. I was going to say like 45 seconds. I was going to say right. It lasts for a little bit. I will say, and then again. But it's interesting how we work, right? What happens right after remorse? What happens after remorse? Rationalization. Right. That's where it kicks in. So we'll say let's use Shmiras Hayinayim just because I think it's something that many of us struggle with in different kinds of ways. So I look at something inappropriate, and then again, okay, I feel bad. I feel bad afterwards. And then I will say, if you were to get into your own mind, you were to rationalize looking at something inappropriate, how would you rationalize it?
Wasn't my fault.
well said, and profound.
Very
Was that indigestion or that was an answer? I didn't know.
That was a spiritual vomit.
That was
The acid reflux.
So if I can interpret that strange sound that Adam David made, the way I would interpret it is, it's not a big deal. Why isn't it a big deal? It's a victimless crime. It's a victimless crime. Right? When I speak Lashon Hara, so the truth is, I feel bad because I recognize, you know what? I hurt someone. I steal something. I adversely impacted someone. I cheated in business. Again, ill-gotten gains. When you have to deal with that stuff, you realize you adversely impacted another person. I look at something inappropriate, online, wherever it is. I feel bad, but the good news is, no one got hurt. Right? The good news is it was a victimless crime. No one got hurt. Right? And that is one of the primary ways in which we often tend to rationalize averes. The Piyush is talking about it. He says, "Aki al yakil beinecha." The Rebbe says, don't go ahead and diminish a chet asher chatoso rak neged atzmecha. Don't diminish the severity of a sin, even though you're the only one it impacts. In other words, even when an avera only impacts you, it's not a victimless crime. I will say now the truth is, no. There's really no such thing as a victimless crime. Why? Because the Ma'aseh will say, what happens to me when I sin? What happens? I'm a changed person. When I commit an avera, we'll see, you can just play this out, right? When I do something, even I look at something inappropriate, we'll say, whether you recognize it or not, I'm not the same husband. I'm not the same father. I'm not the same friend. Chet changes me. Chet just fundamentally changes me. So the Rebbe essentially says, avoid that justification of victimless crime. Because the truth is, there's no such thing. Now, you think it's only impacting you, but it's not. First of all, number one, it's not only impacting you, but even if it is only impacting you, the Rebbe says, Lo avera af taiva shel reshusi. So don't think that just because a negative action only impacted you, that it's not a big deal. He says, "Rak neged atzmecha tsurascha va'anochios shel kedusha asher aladata b'cha chatasa." I have sinned against my very inherent holiness. When I commit an avera, say, even if for argument's sake it doesn't affect anyone else, which again, I don't think that's actually true. I think none of us really think that's true. Everything affects someone else. But Lamaisa, even if I could come up with a case and I could isolate the impact of the avera, and it's only felt against me, it's only committed against me, the Rebbe says, but understand what you've done. You've chipped away, you've eroded, you've tarnished, you've damaged, you've diminished your own personalistic holiness, which was something that was given to you by the Ribono Shalom. That's what sin does. That's what sin does. We'll say, imagine the mashal. Somebody said to you, okay, you want to look at that thing on the internet? Fine, look at it. $100. Pay $100. Pay $100. I'll say, I guarantee you none of us would do it. Even if you had disposable income, right? I would say to myself, you know what? It's kind of certainly very intriguing, right? But Lamaisa, not $100 worth. I'll give you 25. So Lamaisa, why? Why? Because the truth is, then I realize that the chet, it costs me something. See, I will say, so often when we sin, the psychology behind sin is, it's not a big deal. Because nothing's going to happen. I don't mean in terms of like punishment. We don't think in those infantile terms. I just mean like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I didn't detract anything. I didn't take away anything. I didn't diminish anything. If it did cost me, I wouldn't do it. The Rebbe says, but it's not true. Every single time I commit an Aveira, I chip away at the beautiful spiritual edifice that is mine. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave me Kedusha, boss. You know what the beautiful part about Yiddishkeit? One of the most beautiful things, in some religions, the mindset is that man is inherently evil, and he has to spend his life trying to become good. In Yiddishkeit, it's just the opposite. Man is inherently good, and my entire life is a struggle to preserve my inherent good. I don't have to find goodness. I don't have to find holiness. It's in me. It's here, right? Elokai neshama shenasata bi. Isn't it incredible? What's their name? The brothers, Becher. Let's see. Like one of the most popular songs now in Eretz Yisrael is this Elokai neshama shenasata Elokai. Everybody has like a new version of it now. It's incredible to see. And again, it's sung by three. I don't know if it's is their original song? They made it up, or it's I don't know.
Their brother was killed.
Right, their brother was killed at the Nova Festival, and they had like a recording of him. I don't know what his Dash came and he's singing this song, and like you see this, like Klal Yisrael has this awakening. Elokai neshama shenasata bi tahorehi. I don't have to find holiness. It's in me. I just have to stop messing it up, and I have to stop getting in my own way, and I have to stop pulling out the rug from under myself. So the Piagesna says, when I sin, I'm chipping away at that personalistic holiness. He goes on, he says, a sin against one's self is just as chamer, is just as serious as the worst avera committed against someone else. V'chatosi, Shabbos say, I just want to point out, the Piagesna say, we've been with the Rebbe long enough to know. The Rebbe never says anything, and this is the beauty of Chassidus in general, and what really allows it to stand apart. I will say, like Chassidus understands that making people feel little doesn't usually make them want to feel great. But if you make people feel great, they'll want to be even greater. So when the Piagesna says something like this, we'll say, the point over here is not to knock us down. It's just the opposite. It's the Piagesna telling each of us, you're so heilig. You're so holy. You're so holy. So stop giving myself a pass on the commission of Averos, telling myself that it's a victimless crime. Telling myself that it's not a big deal, it's just about me and I'm not affected. The Piagesna says, beautiful Jew, you are affected. You are affected. And I'm telling it to you because I love you. I'm telling it to you because I care about you. I'm telling it to you because sometimes the Rebbe sees the holiness in a Jew that the Jew doesn't see in himself. So just understand, when I'm about to commit that Aveira, again, imagine, if somebody were to tell you $100 is going to be withdrawn from your checking account, chances are, for 9.9 out of 10 Averas, I would say, you know what? No, thank you. It's not worth the cost. It's not worth the cost. The Rebbe says, if you could only imagine and only understand what the cost is on a spiritual level, when a person commits an Aveira, what I'm giving up. I'll say, I want to be clear, right? The Rebbe is not talking about that you're going to Gehenna and you're going to get patched and you're going to get whipped and you're going to get this. That's not what he's doing. It's not what he's doing. That's not. We're so beyond that schar va'onesh, that reward and punishment model. The Rebbe is saying, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave you something so beautiful. That beautiful thing is you. You're the most beautiful thing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes. And every single time I commit an Avera, I chip away at that beauty. Why? For what? Why give up your holiness? Why give up your beauty? And if you're going to give up that holiness and your beauty, you better make sure you have a good return on investment. If you're going to give it up, make sure you're getting something really great back in return for that which you are sacrificing. And the Rebbe ends off and he says, V'chatos, and I will say, this is important. Now, why is this coming up over here? Why is this coming up over here? Actually, let's finish the line. It says, V'chatosi negdi samid. I will say, this is incredible. What does it mean, V'chatosi negdi samid? This is David HaMelech, Sefer Tehillim. David HaMelech says, my sin is opposite me at all times. I will say, there's a machlokes in the Gemara, Maseches Yuma. Averos shehezvada aleim b'yom kippurim she'avra. If I did tshuva, for Averos, and let's say the year 5783. 5783. I did Averos. Let's say I did Avera. What's a good Avera? So many to choose from. I'd be very curious to get audience participation on this one, right? So I'll say, I'm sorry?
Everyone starts like
Eating chazer, good. So I'll say 5783, I ate chazer, okay? I did tshuva. Rosh Hashanah 5784, I did tshuva. All of 5784, Baruch Hashem, I didn't eat chazer. Right? Good. Chazer free. 5784 was a chazer free year, right? I come now to Rosh Hashanah 5785. Am I obligated to still do tshuva for the consumption of chazer in 5783? Or do we say no? You did your tshuva in 5784 for Rosh Hashanah. You didn't eat chazer that entire year. Done, gamarnu. It's a fundamental machlokes in the Gemara. Essentially, I will say it's actually a very profound machlokes. Do your averos from the past trail behind you your entire life? Or at a certain...
roll over.
Is that a sign?
or maybe if I just stop them, I could kind of cut ties with them.
If they do follow you, then what is tshuva then?
I'm sorry? Tshuva might free me from liability. But perhaps as a person, I have an obligation to be ever aware. So
actually turn them into mitzvahs.
So you could do so. It could be tshuva me'ava.
Is you're converting,
right? That's possible also. But it would be just an awareness. Davi, what were you going to say?
Well, it's like addiction, right?
Yeah.
So addiction, when you are in recovery, per se, you're not always thinking about, hey, I want to have a drink, but you're always just watching yourself to make sure you're keeping yourself in check. The same thing, I feel like it's the same thing if you don't have necessarily a ratzon to want to eat chazer, as the example goes, I feel like it's not necessarily something that's following you, it's something that when you have that desire to sin, then you have to do that work.
To kind of bring up that awareness.
But until then, once you're settled and like you're stable in the fact that like it's not something you have any desire for that's even a taiva for you, then it's not something that matters.
Right. It doesn't have to become part of my present life. Beautiful. So the truth is, Rabosai, what David is saying is actually one side of this machlokes. This big machlokes. A fundamental machlokes in tshuva. Do you have to perpetually do tshuva for all of the averos of your past, even if you stopped doing them? Or no, once I stop, I did tshuva, the past is the past. So Rabosai, the raya for what we'll call perpetual memory is this passage from David Amal. David Amal says, V'chatosi negdi summit. David Amal says, I keep my averos in front of me at all times. So the Gemara says this is a proof to say that what? When you sin, you must remain ever present and ever aware of your averos. Even if I stop committing them. Okay, look what the Piagetzna does. He says, Rak negdi chatas. Piagetzna gives a different interpretation of the pasuk. He says, sometimes in life, chatasi is only negdi. This is so beautiful. What does that mean? Sometimes life chatasi is only negdi. Sometimes my avera is only about me, right? In other words, I was saying, I would venture to say that probably, like most of the averas I do, like really don't necessarily impact other people. Other people would never know about them. They're not gonna come up. They're averas that I do. The averas that I do, they're between me and myself. They're between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Lamaisa, so David HaMelech says, sometimes you have chatasi negdi. Sometimes all you have is an avera that doesn't per se impact other people, even though again, every avera impacts other people, like we said before. It's just negdi. But even that type of avera, summit. He says, Umikol makom chet hu lefanai tamid. Even if my chet is only negdi, I have to still, nevertheless, tamid, I have to be ever aware of it, ever conscious of it, and ultimately, again, try to root it out. So why is the Rebbe saying this? So what the Rebbe is trying to highlight over here is sometimes, which averas are the ones that imprint themselves or like entrench themselves most deeply in the neshama? It's the ones I commit against myself. You see, I both say, think about this. When you think about an avera that you committed against another person, the truth is very often, I will say, you ever have a situation where like, you have people who maybe you're uncomfortable with. Right? It happens sometimes. Right? Like most people you're uncomfortable with, so so like when you do something wrong, let's say I'm a chalmuz because I did something wrong to them, and even though I apologize, at the end of the day, I can't really run from that avera because like I see the person, I'm reminded of it. The Piaget seems to be saying the averas which often entrench themselves in the recesses of my soul, which kind of sit there like that soul ulcer, and they sit there and they spread and they infect and they bubble up every once in a while. Those are the chatasi negdi. Those are the quote-unquote victimless crimes, right? Those are the averas that I do that it's really between me and me, or me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And those are the things that all too often I just really never take care of. I don't, so to speak, using David's example of it, like I don't work the program. Right? I'm not working the program on those averas. I'm not working the recovery on those things because I've kind of just ignored it and kind of just like left it on the side and kind of just not really engaging in it. And if in my mind, I don't even think about it anymore. So it just went away. It just mamish went away. But it hasn't gone away. It's sitting there. And I will say sometimes that is the very source of my spiritual infection. So the chatasi negdi, never think in life that there is a victimless crime, and sometimes realize those things that are just between us and ourselves, sometimes those become the things that really prevent us from moving forward in life. Paragraph Vav. We'll say another incredible piece. Now these are really independent concepts, each of them incredible. Charata al kishalon. We'll say so now. Concept of charata, remorse. Right? The person makes a mistake, and ultimately, again, they have remorse for their mistake. So I'll say, this is just incredibly amazing. And in general, I'll say everything the Piaget does is incredibly amazing. Listen to this. He says, Tova, in general, charata, remorse, is a good thing. Right? We'll say, what does remorse show? What does remorse show?
You care.
You care, right? If you don't have remorse, it just means you don't care. Right? So remorse as a reaction is one of the most powerful things because it shows like I'm emotionally and spiritually intact. I'm here. I'm present. So it's good. I'll say, look at he writes. He says, this is incredible. He says, Rak Yesheshav. But remorse is only good if you do tshuva. Af mashlim es tshuva achareh. Not only is it good, but remorse makes tshuva. Right? Think about tshuva. In the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam has the various steps of tshuva. So what are the various steps of tshuva? Number one, hakaras, even before regret, hakaras achet, a recognition. You got to recognize what you did right before anything else, and then ultimately charata. Then step 2 is remorse. There might be like a step 1.5, what the Rambam calls hirhur, what the Rav Gifter calls hirhur tshuva, like a thought, like a premonition, an epiphany, a epiphanonymous moment of tshuva. I'm avoiding eye contact with Dr. Buck because he knows that that's not a real word, right? He might be the only formally educated person of epiphanonymous. Yeah. Also, a moment of epiphanicity is the other way. Is the other way to say it, right? I say so. So listen to this. So then you have charata. You have remorse. So the Piaget says remorse is very powerful. Ultimately, again, because remorse is a necessary step in tshuva. You can't do tshuva if you don't feel bad. Right? I'll say, this is why, sometimes people talk about the averis of the past. And like they talk about it like glory days. I remember when. Right? And like they're like, you see the smile and they're looking off into the distance, reminiscing. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that because also then what's lacking is charata. There's a really, and again, I will say now sometimes to be fair, sometimes let's say a person turns their life around, right? It's not the pshat that I sinned in the past because I didn't care. I grew up a certain way and then I chose to turn my life around. So that's something different, right? When a person reflects, because it wasn't hate, it was just a different lifestyle. It was just a different life, right?
It's giving Adam some chizuk.
You have exhausted your speaking part for tonight. I'm just telling you, right?
It was me.
So I was like, so now, but sometimes like a person kind of like, remembers, I remember when I did this. So, no, charata is very important. We'll watch this. Vim yav, yesh lefamim she'od mazekis. I will say this is incredible. But the Rebbe says like this. However, if charata is not followed up by a process of tshuva, then charata becomes destructive. We'll say, now watch this. So okay. So remember, in the process of tshuva, remember again, you have hakaras achet, recognition. You have charata. you have remorse. And then you have other steps. What are other steps? Kabbalah al ha'asid, right? Well, first there's vidui, there's confession, right? Kabbalah al ha'asid, ultimately again, taking upon yourself to live differently and do better in the future. And again, creating a plan to live better and to do better in the future. So the Rebbe says like this, charata remorse is a powerful tool as long as it is followed by tshuva. If remorse is not followed by tshuva, he says remorse could actually be incredibly destructive. Now, I both say, now the truth is, I thought, when I was learning this, I thought what the Piaget was going to say like this. I thought I was so smart that I could finish a sentence. Right? Why is remorse destructive? Right? Because yesh. Because we'll say, if a person is so steeped, sometimes you could be so overwhelmed by remorse that like you become paralyzed by guilt. You become paralyzed by sadness. And like Rabbi Nachman says, the most destructive power in this world is not chait. It's not sin. The most destructive power in this world is yeush, is when a person gives up on himself. The Rebbe says that the Yetzer Hara, it's incredible, the Yetzer Hara doesn't get you to sin. That's not it. Yetzer Hara has much bigger plans for me than sin. The Yetzer Hara wants me to give up. That's what he wants. He wants me to give up. He wants me to stop trying. And he wants me to just simply give up on myself. Because, Chavra, we know, the moment you give up on yourself, you're going to be sinning like no one's business. Because at the end of the day, if I don't matter, and my life doesn't matter, and I'm not trying, I can do whatever I want. But it's if I don't matter, then my actions don't matter. If my actions don't matter, I might as well just do whatever gives me pleasure. So that's the Yetzer Hara. That's the Satan always tries to get us to do. It doesn't try to get us to sin. So I thought what the Rebbe was going to say was that the danger of charata, when it's not plugged in to a process of tshuva. Rebbe said, what's the beauty of tshuva? Tshuva is a process of cathartic and comprehensive change. Tshuva gives you the road, the journey, to be able to get yourself from point A to point B. And the process holds your hand every single step of the way. What you need to do. If all you have is charata, you wallow in that shame, you wallow in that pain, and it paralyze you. Which I still think is true, but not all what the Rebbe says. So look what the Rebbe says. It's incredible. He says, Kiteva ha'ish. Shekol hargasha efshar lo shetarich b'kirba. This is incredible. The way emotion works, says the Rebbe, is that a feeling doesn't last in perpetuity. Feeling doesn't last in perpetuity. In other words, a person has a feeling. Shekol hargasha, right? I have a feeling, and again, feelings come and feelings go, right? So nothing really remains. V'gam hargashas hacharata v'lachatz libo b'kirbo. So I'll say so too. If I have a feeling of remorse and a feeling of sadness for what I have or I haven't done. Listen to what he writes. Kishalo yal bishena b'guf. Rabbi said the lashon over here is so profound. When you don't take that charata, if I don't take that charata and literally clothe it in my body, what does it mean clothe it in my body? What does that mean? Tshuva. If you don't take that feeling of remorse and actually embed it in a physical process of tshuva, then what happens? He says, "V'lo yikabena b'tshuva Paul," and you don't make it part of an active process of tshuva. Techdal. You know what happens? Well, so you know what happens with remorse over time? It goes away. Weakens, then it disappears. V'tachta od yargish oneg. And well, so you know what happens when the remorse goes away? You know what replaces it? A feeling of happiness. Happiness. Now we'll say, why happiness? Oneg al shenispata peshin chavtes me'agasha sacharata sha'agma osa ve'ikas rucho. Why happiness? Because also it is so nice not to feel guilty. Right? It is so good not to feel guilty. Right? And sometimes when that feeling of charata, of remorse goes away, so it's like, whew, I don't have to walk around feeling guilty anymore. Not only that, listen what he writes. Va'bar hazeh eno mevin od yitalomar shetanugo ze oneg nafsho hishesmecha b'tshuva mesenkes v'tarasa. And sometimes the person can be so delusional, so self-delusional that what? That they think that the reason they feel happy is because, I did tshuva. Meanwhile, I didn't do tshuva. I just felt guilt. I did nothing with the guilt. The guilt dissipated. When guilt dissipates, it's replaced with just a sense of happiness and complacency. And I erroneously attribute this happiness and complacency to the fact that, I must have done the personal work. V'haraya, I feel so good. And he writes, he says at the end of the day, he says, Misyapehu ol bezamuso. A person could end up glorifying himself while still being sullied and degraded. V'nishar rachmana litzlan b'nivulo. And a person is still steeped in their state of personalistic degradation. Risha'im meleim charatos. So I will say, this is an incredibly, incredibly profound piece. So I will say, so in this next piece involved, what the Rebbe is saying is like this. that ultimately I commit an Aveira and I have that sense of charata. Charata, on one hand, is profoundly powerful, but only if plugged in to a system of behavior. Only if plugged into immediate behavioral change. Now, behavioral change doesn't have to mean instantaneous change, but it plugged into a system that's going to lead to some kind of change. The change can be slow, and the change can be gradual. But if the charata is just allowed to remain in emotion, emotions dissipate. And when that emotion dissipates, ultimately, again, what happens is replaced with simcha, or just complacency, or just nothingness. And ultimately, a person gets nowhere in life. And even worse, a person could convince themselves that maybe they did the personal work, when in fact they actually didn't. So we'll say, give me just one second. So we'll say, understand how powerful this is. What the Rebbe is saying is, we've seen this before in B'nai Machshava Tova also, which is, when you feel something, you have to plug it into dynamic activity. Because the problem, we'll say, how many times does it happen? We'll say, this in general is why inspiration doesn't really affect change. Right? I always say, think about the last time you were inspired. 9 out of 10 times it happens with inspiration. How was inspiration? Right? You have the great Kabbalah Shabbos, and right, great Kabbalah Shabbos, and what happens? I'm 45 minutes late for chakras the next morning. How did that happen? I don't understand. How did that happen? I was so inspired. It was so mamish. I felt like Mashiach was coming. And literally, I can't get myself out of bed. I'm such a shlamazel that I can't get it together after a night of inspiration to get myself to shul at 8, not 8:45, 8:43. So I should greet the Ribono Shalom like a mensch. I have to come in a half hour late, like I'm an idiot, like I'm a baby, like somebody has to change my diaper and I can't get myself out of the house. You'll excuse me. This is very...
By the way, you got all the praise at the beginning.
No, we'll say no.
Ellie lifts us up.
We'll say it's important because sometimes we're not honest with ourselves. We're not honest. And the reason is, we'll say what happens. It's because, to be honest, what I did is I had that beautiful aliyah of Kabbalah Shabbos, and I didn't do anything with the energy. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't plug it in anywhere. So pretty much what I did is, I came home, I ate my seudah, I tried to stay awake through benching, right? I'm pretty sure I made it through no dilicha, I'm not sure what happened to the rest, right? And that's it, right? I got myself a bagel, right? I got a fantastic bagel.
You still had
Bagel.
incredible Kabbalah.
It's
not an inspirational moment.
I'm not diminishing. No. You're saying good. There is a power to just having the experience. What I'm just pointing out is that sometimes one of the most frustrating things in Ruchnius is we don't pay it forward. We don't do anything with it because the inspiration comes and then I don't plug it in. I believe Yitzchak Berditchev, the Rebbe says, what the Rebbe says? The Rebbe says that when you have a moment of inspiration, the Rebbe says you have to plug it into something. He says, what should you do? He says, just open up Chumash. He says, just read a pasuk. And he says, even if it's Vaidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. Even if that's it, the Rebbe says, fantastic. What you've done is you've taken the energy and you've put it into something concrete. So now you took energy, you put it into action. And I will say, by the way, that might also be for us. Person has, an aliyah-filled Kabbalah Shabbos, which Baruch Hashem we are zocheh to have here week after week after week. Maybe that is the avodah. Maybe the avodah is just to come home and literally, again, for 10 seconds, do a Mishnah. For 10 seconds, do a pasuk. Do something so that you could say, my spiritual energy now vested in this physical act. So the Rebbe over here, so the Rebbe Levi Yitzchak is talking on the positive side. The Piaget is talking about even on the negative side. Charata is powerful. But if all I have is a feeling, and the feeling is not plugged into a process of tshuva, it doesn't go anywhere. But now, why is the Piaget bringing this up now? But remember, what are we trying to figure out? I'm trying to figure out why there is so much schmutz embedded inside of my neshama. Because I got to get it out. Because I don't want to just keep treating the vomiting. I want to treat the spiritual ulcer. I want to heal myself. And what the Rebbe is saying is a lot of times Rebbe said because we don't really complete the tshuva process. We begin it, and we have a lot of remorse and a lot of stuff. But the problem is we never take the feelings and embed them in a comprehensive process of actual physical change. And if that doesn't happen to embed it in the process, then the feelings come and the feelings go, and I simply remain the same person. And even worse, sometimes I actually think that I did tshuva when I didn't tshuva. Steve, go ahead.
So if I remember correctly, the Rebbe said in the other sefer about how if somebody pushes off that, doing that sin, doing that avera, even if it's for 20 seconds, or I'm going to push it off for 2 minutes, he did Tzad Gomer.
100%.
Is that your play into this?
Right.
Yeah. I can take it. I can take it.
By the way, no, and that's. I want to point out. That's what at least point out. I want to be clear. At the end of the day, if you have the Aliyah de Kabbalah Shabbos, even if you don't plug it into something, you still have that moment. I'm not diminishing it. I'm not diminishing it. The moment is yours. It's no different, by the way, that if you come and you go ahead and you learn today, and then tomorrow you eat chazer, you still have the schus of learning today, right? In other words, that doesn't go anywhere. I'm saying in other words, you still have that. We don't have this thing that things cancel each other out. But Lamaisa, how frustrating is it that we have these incredible and overwhelming moments, and then what happens? They don't move anywhere, right? They don't affect change. All right, we'll stop over here for tonight because Ma'ariv in the main shul now. All right, I'm sorry. Bottom line, come to shul on time. Not to shul on time. Right? Ma'ariv's going to start on time.
Yeah. Going to start on time from now on.
Right, chaburah, next 2 weeks, actually no shir next 2 weeks, unfortunately. Next week, Baruch Hashem. Next week, Chasana, Mazel Tov, Blumen Mishpacha. On Orange, Chasana, Mazel Tov. And the week after is the Daf Yomi Siyum. Emir Hashem. So next 2 weeks is not going to be shir, but